Hey guys, Joe here, doing a review on a used car. Technically, it's my second rental car. The reason I'm doing that is because I work quite far away from where I live, and the Jeep Compass, while it is a comfortable drive, got really horrible gas mileage. I mean, high teens I was averaging, and that's pretty bad. So they switched me up and they put me into a different car, and I figured, what the hell, let's do a review on it. So what they put me into is a 2015 Chrysler 200. Now, I know you guys are all going, oh, those are cheap, those are junk, those are just rental cars, which is absolutely what it is. However, they've come a long way from back in the day. From the old Sebrings, they've stepped up greatly. Because one of the things people don't realize is that the previous generation 200, which my father has, was built on the Sebring. This 200 is on an expanded platform version of the Dart. Now, the Dart has never been a bad handling car. It's always just been an underperforming car. And when you're an underperforming vehicle and you don't have any power, it really puts a dent in your ability to sell that type of vehicle. If the Dart had a Evo motor, that thing would probably fly off dealer lots, just like the old Neon SRT4 used to. So this vehicle, I've been driving it for 2 days, so I've taken it to work and back. I've picked up my mother at the airport with it, and I've had some time with it, and I have to say it's not bad. I really am not faulting the car, especially for what you can get one for. They are not an unfair deal. The ride is good. This car has 36,700 miles on it, and that's rental miles, and it still feels tight as a drum. A little bit of brake fade, but that's going to be expected when you have 50,000 different people driving it. But the steering is still nice and tight. The transmission, which is the rotary dial 9-speed in this, works very well. It shifts well. It's always looking for the right gear, which is a little bit of a detriment to the gas mileage in this vehicle. I will say that. I think the V6 gets better gas mileage just solely on the merit that it isn't hunting nearly as much as this transmission is. This transmission is always like, well, which gear am I in? I need to accelerate. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I'm happy to report it has the exact same bullcrap cruise control. Now, it does at least display your speed that you set the cruise control on, but coming back from Dulles Airport, I had to go down a hill. At the beginning of the downward part of the hill, I was doing 61 miles an hour. Not that fast. I was in a 55 doing 61. I don't speed much. I was a little bit over. Send me a ticket. But as soon as we started going downhill, for some reason the transmission went from 8th to 4th and the car accelerated. Didn't need to do any of that. And then, to add insult to injury, I turned off cruise control, but because I was still going down a hill, it refused to upshift the transmission. Even when I applied the brakes and slowed to 50 miles an hour and tried to re-accelerate, it would not shift out of 4th. So I had to go almost 1.5 miles down the hill at 4,300 RPMs because this cruise control is the stupidest cruise control in the history of cruise controls. And thank you very much to FCA for not being able to do a cruise control right, you stupid twerts. I was gonna say something ruder, but I'm trying to be kid friendly. But hey, at least their streak's still alive. I thought it was gonna be better. And even though it displays the speed you set it at, it still misses that speed. Unbelievable. So yeah, if you want accurate cruise controls, go somewhere else. That's all I gotta say about that. The control layout, I gotta admit, it was a little bit weird at first for me because, as you know, in the Chrysler, and you'll see when I do the pan around, all the controls are laid out down low and it's got the rotary knob. I keep trying to find a gear shift to rest my hand on, and there obviously isn't one, and it's really weird to me. And it's also funny because automatics are the only time I rest my hand on the shifter. On a manual, I always just lay my arm to the side. Can't do that in this car for another reason you'll see. But those little nitpicks aside, I actually like the way it drives. It's got plenty of room for my legs, which is always the concern I have, because I have a weird body type. I'm 6'4", but I have a 30-inch inseam. So that means that I sit a little bit closer than somebody of my height should, so it tends to make my legs sprawl out a little bit. So I need a little bit wider cabin for my legs, and this seems to accommodate that just fine. Controls are pretty sensibly laid out. You have your cruise controls on the right side. You have your menu controls for the center screen and the dashboard on the left side. It has the stereo controls on the back of the steering wheel, which I prefer. It's got a regular knobby for the headlights and dials for the intensity and brightness, as well as the ambient lighting in the car. So yeah, it's not a bad car. The seats, they look a little bit dated, but again, this is just rental car trim. This is the basic 200, whatever it would be. It's the one that doesn't even get an extra badge on it because it's that basic. My only thing I would do differently is I would put better seats and the V6. If you did that, it would make a perfectly serviceable daily driver. So here we are on the outside. It's just your standard rental car spec. So it's got the basic wheels. It's just in silver. It's nothing fancy. It doesn't have the fog lights. It's not an S, but it's actually, I like the way this car looks. I think they did very well. Little things like they made the rear glass much more integrated into the car, unlike the previous 200, which just looked kind of weird. I like the integrated ducktail kind of setup for the spoiler back here. That's ripping off the previous 200, which again is fine. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty cohesive design. Not too many bad angles, although I do very much prefer the S trim or the Sport, just because they look meaner. Up front, you have projector beam headlights, as well as LED running strips or running lights. Standard Chrysler badge. So there you go. It's really not a bad car, especially for a rental. He's starting from the left. Anyways, this is the interior of the 2015 Chrysler 200 base model. I guess base model is the accurate term for it. As you can see, it is a modern design, kind of very similar to the Dart in many ways, and that should be expected since technically this is built on a Dart platform. I do like the dash, especially at first glance, because you have these, you know, backlit LED halos and digital screens and all that good stuff. However, the more I look at it, the more it seems like Chrysler kind of ripped off Hyundai, because the Hyundai Elantra and the Hyundai Sonata both have a very similar style to their gauges, like with the fuel gauges and the styling of the lettering. And while it's not a horrible thing to emulate, it probably could have been slightly different. Steering wheel controls, as I mentioned in the driving portion, you have your menu controls for that screen, as well as your cruise control for the worst cruise control in the history of automobiles ever. Down here you have your Bluetooth and voice controls for your phone. I have two phones paired up. It was really easy, thank God, unlike some companies like, oh, I don't know, Acura. Down here you have your headlight switch, your dimmer switch for the interior lighting, all of a sudden I can't think of the name, ambient lighting, as well as the dashboard lighting, standard controls for all this stuff. This has a small 4.2-inch screen, however it is touch screen, so that's nice to have. And then coming down here, this is the thing that sets the Chrysler apart from some of the other manufacturers, most notably this, the rotary dial for the shifter. This is connected to the 9-speed automatic transmission, which is supposed to get really good gas mileage. But as you can see, I'm only getting an average of 28. That's not bad, but still I should be getting slightly better than that in a car with a small 4-cylinder. I honestly believe that the V6 would get better gas mileage just because it has less work pulling around this much weight. The climate controls are pretty easy to use. This is the fan control, your AC controls, and some of your directional controls. Now, a big part of it is actually controlled here on the screen, and some of it's controlled down here. A little convoluted, but it works okay. Big storage underneath the cup holder, along with your USB and aux jack. And of course, back here, when this is closed, you have your glove box back here. So that's nice. That's my backpack. Hi, backpack. How you doing, backpack? You doing good, backpack? Good, backpack. Whack, whack. I'm not going to get in the back seat because I already know how it feels back there. It's a little bit tighter than either the Malibu or the Fusion. However, if you go to, I believe it is EPA or CAFE, I'm not sure which company determines what cars fall into what class. But for example, the Malibu and the Fusion are both so big that if they had 1 cubic foot more of interior room, they would have to be reclassified as full-size cars. This car is still technically mid-size, even though it's still bridging into a bigger car. Tons of front seat room. The back seat room is a little bit compromised, but not by much. There is an angle to the back seat, which I'm not sure if that's because of this one having the base seats or if that's just the way they all are. But there you go. Let's do a quick walk around. And that's about it. So there you go. 2015 Chrysler 200 base model. Quick review, quick drive. I didn't get too much into it because, again, it's not a car that we're selling. It's not a car that I own. It's just a car that they gave me for another rental. And I figured, what the hell? Might as well see what happens to a car after it's had 37,000 miles of rental duty on it. Duty. Sorry, immature. Yeah, it's not bad. Actually, I wouldn't mind buying one as a daily driver. And I know some of you are about to run away screaming and commit seppuku, but don't. They're not that bad a car. Most cars nowadays can be decent vehicles if you get the right trim, the right equipment at the right price. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you want to give me a thumbs up, I'll accept it. If you want to give me a thumbs down, I'll accept it. If you just want to come over and hang out and eat pizza, give me 20 minutes to get my place clean.